Assalamu alaikum, namaste, sat sri akal, shalom and good day. You are listening to Awaz Community Radio. Today in the studio we have Jenny Harkison from Action on Hearing Loss. So if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can log on to our website www.awazcommunityradio.com. You can email us awazcommunityradio@gmail.com. If you'd like to ring us the good old-fashioned way, it's 0161 839 9817, or catch us on the social media. We're on Facebook. All you've got to do is type in Awaz Community Radio or tweet us, Awaz Radio 122.
Started rehearsing, kicking a few things around. And we got a very good sound. So Mr. Gordon was there and I told him the idea we would like to get with the company.
Thank you for listening to Awaz Community Radio. Your host is Saira today, and as I said, our guest is Jenny Harkison, who is the Regional Information Officer for North of England, based in Manchester, for Action on Hearing Loss. Bit of a mouthful. It is.
It is indeed.
Thank you for coming in, Jenny.
That's a pleasure.
So, Jenny, would you like to tell us a bit more about Action on Hearing Loss? I believe it's formerly known as RNID.
That's correct, yes. Action on Hearing Loss is what we describe as the new name for RNID, the Royal National Institute for Deaf People. The RNID was founded in 1911 as the National Institute for the Deaf, and it's had various name changes over the years. By the time we got to our centenary in 2011, we decided we needed a little bit more of a punchy name, hence Action on Hearing Loss, because really that's what we as a charity want people to do, is to take action on their hearing loss.
That sounds great. So can I ask, how did you get involved with the charity?
Right, well, strangely, I was actually looking for a part-time job. That may sound a bit strange, but I had worked in libraries for a large number of years, and then I just took a short career break, and then I went back and thought, well, I perhaps want to work part-time. So I was looking for a part-time job, and the RNID wanted somebody with information skills, which I had from my librarianship days. They were happy to teach me about everything to do with hearing loss. So I applied and got the job 20 years ago. And so I've been working part-time ever since. I do have a job share, so I have Sue Davis as a job share. So between us, we cover the whole week, but we also cover the whole of England. So, but as you can imagine, we do quite like our job, the fact that we're still doing it after 20 years.
So Jenny, can you give some advice to our listeners? What can they do if they suspect they have hearing loss, or if they suspect someone they know does?
Okay. The most common reason that people think they have a hearing loss is because the television's up too loud, or somebody will say, I do find that everybody mumbles. Now, this is a very common sign of age-related hearing loss. So I'll just throw a few statistics at your listeners to keep them awake. And that is that there are estimated to be 10 million people in this country who have some form of hearing loss. So that's everything from a fairly mild, just struggling a little bit with the odd sentences, through to people who really don't hear anything at all. So that's 1 in 6 of the population. And most people have this hearing loss because it's part of the ageing process. So a bit like many other things that stop working quite so well as we get older, hearing loss is one of those. It's just a natural process. A lot of people are in denial, and a lot of people will take, on average, up to 10 years before they actually are persuaded by their family, or they think themselves, possibly because they can't hear their grandchildren's voices, or they've had a close shave with a bus that they didn't hear coming, something like that. So what people need to do is go to their GP and ask for a referral for a hearing test. A bit like if there's anything else wrong with you, you would go to your GP and say, can you perhaps check this out for me? There is another route, which is going straight to a private hearing aid dispenser and saying, I'd like a hearing test and I've got sufficient funds to purchase a hearing aid. So there's two routes, but most people do go via their GPs, the NHS route, because those hearing aids are free. So you have a hearing test, and if you need one hearing aid or two hearing aids, those are provided by the NHS. All repairs and maintenance are free, as are batteries. So the route, if you like, is to go via your GP. But I would say the most useful piece of information I can give to people is do it sooner rather than later. So listen to your family and your friends if they're saying, you don't seem to be picking up what we're saying, because what will happen is your family and your friends will start to become a little frustrated with you, because the hearing loss doesn't just affect you as an individual, it affects everybody you come in touch with, because the communication process, the transfer of information from you to the other person is starting to break down because you're not hearing everything. So don't leave it. Get onto it as soon as somebody mentions it. Do it sooner rather than later. Don't wait for 10 years.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Jenny. Can we also ask about tinnitus? Is that a form of hearing loss?
No, tinnitus is what people can hear but nobody else can hear. So quite often this is a ringing noise or a buzzing or a hissing or a whistling. Some people actually hear singing, a particular song that is not coming from a radio or a CD player. It's just a noise that an individual can hear. It can be quite distressing because it's not measurable by audiology departments or ENT. So people, again, should go to their GP. But what the GP may say is, yes, that's quite possibly tinnitus. There is nothing I can do about it, and leave it at that. What people need to know is there is a lot of support available. There is no medical cure for tinnitus, but there are a lot of therapies and strategies to help people cope with the tinnitus, to help them live with it and make it less important in their lives. And in Manchester, we're very lucky because there's a very active tinnitus support group based in the centre of Manchester. Would it be helpful if I just gave you the contact number?
Yes, please.
Okay. The contact number is 0161 276 9333, and you ask for Jude.
Thank you very much for that, Jenny. Can I ask a little question about North Staffordshire CCG? It was something I read about the other day, that they're possibly considering not funding hearing aids anymore.
Yes, this is something that we as an organisation are very concerned about. As I said just previously, the way that vast majority of people get their hearing aids is go via their GP and get NHS hearing aids. Now, there is a suggestion, a proposal put out by the clinical commissioning group in North Staffordshire, which isn't in this area, but the implications are national. And what they're suggesting is that everybody can have a hearing test. They won't stop people having a hearing test, but if as a result of the hearing test your hearing loss is only seen as mild or moderate, which still means you would benefit from a hearing aid, they're proposing not to provide those. You have to have a hearing loss that's seen as severe, which is really struggling in day-to-day life to communicate. The proposal is that they will not provide you with those hearing aids. So your only alternative will be to go and purchase one. Now, purchasing hearing aids is fine. There's no problem with that, provided you have a minimum of £1,000 per hearing aid, plus money available for costs for repairs and batteries. So we're very concerned as a charity to stop this, because the implications are obviously if one area stops providing NHS hearing aids, many other areas will follow their lead. So we do have an online petition that we're encouraging people to sign. North Staffordshire are doing a national consultation, so it doesn't matter where you live, you can sign the petition and say, really, we think you should carry on providing hearing aids for everybody who needs them.
And we definitely ask our listeners as well to please get online and support that petition. It feels a little bit like hearing loss is not being seen as important as perhaps the loss of other senses in North Staffordshire. That's quite worrying.
Yes, it's certainly it's something that I personally feel anyway, that hearing loss is not considered as important an issue as, say, sight loss. Whereas actually we have 5 senses and they're all equally as important as each other. And if something starts to go wrong with one, if there's something goes wrong with our hearing or our eyes, and there is something that can be done to help us make the most of the hearing we have left, i.e. a hearing aid, then in order for us to carry on being active members of society and not start to get into this situation of social isolation, which again is a big health issue at the moment, isn't it? People are talking about people becoming socially isolated. If you're not able to hear people when you go out into your social groups and activities, you're going to start withdrawing, become isolated. There are add-on health complications because you're less interested. You're not really bothered about your health so much because, well, I'm not going out, I'll just stay here at home. So we are really concerned about this proposal.
Would you say that things are better in Manchester at the moment regards to funding?
In Manchester, there is no proposals, as far as I'm aware, to stop providing hearing aids. And certainly if we talk about other sorts of equipment, because we've talked about hearing aids, but if people have a hearing loss, there is other sorts of equipment that can perhaps help them in different circumstances. So if you think, everything that we're alerted to by sound. Telephone rings, doorbell rings, smoke alarm screeches, cooker timer, whatever. If you're struggling to hear, you perhaps need something that's louder, or something that has a flashing light on it, or perhaps even vibrates to alert you. Now in Manchester, the adult social care, what we used to call social services department, who have a responsibility for doing assessments and then providing equipment, have been very fortunate that despite all the cuts that we all know that are going on, they've been able to maintain a really good service. And again, their equipment is free if you meet various criteria. So I would always urge people to contact the sensory team, because if you don't ask, you won't get anything anyway. So because there is this really good service still in Manchester, I do again have a phone number if that will be helpful.
Yes, please.
Okay. The contact number for the sensory provision by Manchester City Council, the number is 0161 234 5001.
Thank you very much for that, Jenny. So can you talk to us a little bit about maintaining hearing aids?
Yes, certainly. I think I've stressed so far you must go ahead and get a hearing aid, but obviously once you've got a hearing aid, you do need to have that hearing aid in your ear, otherwise it won't be doing any good. And a lot of people, when they very first try their new hearing aids, they do struggle because, first of all, they're not used to having something in their ear, so they perhaps feel it itches or it hurts a bit. That will get better the longer you wear your hearing aids. The other problem people encounter is we do live in a very noisy world, and because they've not been hearing the sounds properly for quite a long time, they're now hearing the sounds much better and realising we live in a very noisy world. So eventually, the longer you wear your hearing aids for, the suggestion always is that you start sort of an hour a day around the house, get used to all those funny sounds that there are around the house, like the fridge vibrating and the clock ticking, that you learn are not important. But when you very first get your hearing aid, they all seem quite overwhelming. So by practice, which means keeping your hearing aid in, those sounds will become quite normal. So we suggest to people that they need to practice, keep their hearing aids in. And then the other side of it is the actual physical maintenance, is making sure the battery's changed maybe once a week. And also, even more importantly, is the tubing, which takes the sound from the working part of the hearing aid into the ear. That should be changed about every 3 to 6 months. A lot of people don't do that. They think, oh, they've given me this bit of tubing and that'll last forever. Absolutely vital, at least every 6 months, possibly every 3 months, which is just a case of popping back to whoever provided you with the hearing aid and they will change it for you. Okay, there's just one other thing that I think is actually quite important in terms of how people get the best benefit from their hearing aid, and that actually is both for the hearing aid wearer, but actually more importantly for family and friends, because we're talking about communication. It's a two-way process. So the person with the hearing loss has done their bit, they've got their hearing aid, they're getting used to wearing it. The rest of us actually have to practice what we would call good communication or clear communication, which is simple things like making sure you have somebody's attention before you start talking to them, making sure that they actually have their hearing aids in and switched on. if you want to have a specific conversation with somebody in this noisy environment, don't stay there. Just pop out into another room where it's quieter. So just kind of sensible communication, but it is about everybody working together, which we tend to do anyway, but we just have to perhaps make a little bit more effort when one party has a hearing loss, because they're not functioning quite as fully as the rest of us. So the key word I would leave you with is have patience and don't shout.
Started rehearsing, kicking a few things around.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Jenny. Now, can you give our listeners perhaps the contact details for Action on Hearing Loss?
Yes, certainly. I'm going to give you our information line number because they're always in the office Monday to Friday 9 to 5, whereas I'm out and about doing talks, doing radio interviews, whatever. So to be sure to actually speak to somebody, the phone number is 0808 808 0123, and the email address is information@hearingloss.org.uk.
I'd like to say a really big thank you to Jenny Harkison for coming in from Action on Hearing Loss. Thank you, Jenny. I think it's been really informative for our listeners, and I do hope that anybody with any worries about their own hearing loss or someone else's, that they will listen to your advice and act on it, like you said, sooner rather than later.
Yes, that's all I would ask, is that people take their hearing and their hearing loss seriously, and as our name says, take action on their hearing loss.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
That's my pleasure.
Thank you for listening. It's been Awaz Community Radio. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us awazcommunityradio@gmail.com. You can ring us 0161 839 9817. We're on Facebook and Twitter. Give us your feedback. Just type in Awaz Community Radio for Facebook and tweet us Awaz Radio 122. Your host has been Saira, and we've been talking about Action on Hearing Loss. Thank you, listeners. Take care.